Elwha Clallam, Jamestown Clallam. Okay, hold on, I'm getting. Okay. No, I thought I just. Oh, okay, how's that? Okay. Okay, okay. People represented by 3 tribal governments, Lower Elwha Clallam, Jamestown Clallam, and Port Gamble Clallam. We serve as stewards of the land within the city of Sequim with the same care and consideration the Clallam tribes has and continues to provide. This acknowledgement is a respect to the Clallam people and their history. The Planning Commission serves as an advisory body to the City Council. The purpose of the Planning Commission is to provide guidance and direction for Sequim's future growth through continued review and improvement to Sequim's comprehensive plan, zoning code, shoreline management, environmental protections, and related land use documents. The Planning Commission will have all of the powers and perform each and all of the duties specified by Chapter 35A.63 RCW as amended and set forth or amended by ordinance. Roll call. Ethan, can you please take roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Kuntz?
Present.
Commissioner Cummings?
Here.
Commissioner Fain?
Present.
Commissioner Hewitt?
Present.
Commissioner Lefevre?
Present.
And Commissioner Mihalik?
Present.
Okay, thank you. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you. Approval of minutes. The minutes that we have for approval are from the January 7th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes, and is there any changes or discussion? Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, none opposed. The minutes stand approved. Public comment. General public comment will be heard at this time. Each person is limited to 3 minutes. For those wishing to speak on public hearing topics, please hold those comments until that portion of the meeting, which we don't have a public hearing at tonight's meeting. So, and seeing nobody in the room tonight to give public comment. Ethan, is there anybody online that would like to give public comment at this time?
No, there's not.
Okay, thank you. So we are now moving on to, seeing that there's no general business, we're moving on to new business. And the first item on our agenda is the interim director introduction.
Good evening, Commission. I'm very happy to be here. I believe we have all introduced ourselves, but for purposes of the record, Christina Nelson Gross, City Attorney, also known as Interim DCD Director. So it is my pleasure to meet you tonight and to be here to assist the DCD through this transition. I think as many of you may know, I've been with the city since June of 2016 as the city capacity and have worked with Dennis in the past in different capacity, but nonetheless still with the city. And We are very excited to be working with the planning department because, as everyone knows, there has been some transition over the years through the director's positions for a variety of reasons that I won't get into today. But the important component is that after this last departure, the city felt that it was critical to stop and take a breath and just take a pause and provides not go out to hire right away, just come in, work with city staff, work with you, get some a sense of calm and stability within the city staff, and that is what I am here to do. And because my role is city attorney, I am not a planning person. I do not know planning, and nor do I purport to be. And I also had significant concerns about signing off as an interim director on something that I could potentially have to defend. So with that, we searched for a planning consultant, and we are, I'm very pleased to report that we have Carla Boughton here with Cross Sound Consulting on this to serve that very purpose. So not only is she's going to be the person who signs off on staff reports and other types of things of that nature on my behalf, I'm delegating some limited authority to her, but she's also going to be providing mentorship and coaching to our planning staff. So again, so it's intended to fill those gaps and those holes that I am not familiar with, and provide staff with a good sense of structure and stability, and still be able to meet the requirements not only by the city, but also through their respective planning roles. And so with that, I see we have Carla online, and I would love to turn the microphone over to her. Hopefully her video holds out. Thank you.
Well, planning commissioners, thank you so much. And I wish that I was there in person. I had planned to be there in person. I do live in Paulsbo, and just with our weather, I wasn't quite sure what the drive up and back would be like. So I'd like to introduce myself to you. I am Carla Boughton with Cross Sound Law, but prior to that, I spent 30 years in municipal government, mostly with cities, and worked, concluded my tenure before becoming a solo consultant with the city of Paulsbo as the planning director. And so I'm happy to be with Christina and the very able DCD staff to help during our transition time with current planning projects, as well as comprehensive planning. And I do see that hopefully my video will hang in there, but I do have a PowerPoint to go over tonight, so maybe that will help. But I can transition to that, Christina, or if there's any questions the planning commissioners have, I'm happy to answer that before we dive into the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Carla before she goes into her presentation? Okay. And Carla, are you able to share your screen during your PowerPoint?
I am hoping to. Let's see.
Okay.
Oh no.
If not, it's okay.
Yeah, I think we did have a backup plan if this happened. So I feel like I need to stop sharing. So you don't want to see what I see.
Okay.
So Ethan, if you can pull that up. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Carla can just tell you when she's ready for you to move down.
Okay. Thank you, Ethan,
Hey.
thank you for pitch hitting on the presentation. So I've been Katrina has me on contract about 2.5 weeks now. I've been coming in 2 days a week in person to the office. And one of the first things that I've been working on is getting myself updated on the comprehensive plan update process that you all have been engaged in starting last year. And so I wanted to spend some time for myself, but for you, just checking in on where the city's been with the comprehensive plan, and also just concluding by asking some questions so that I can learn from you about what you heard during your really robust public engagement process. So next slide. I'm going to go ahead and start off with just a couple introductory slides for why we do comprehensive planning and why it matters. I'm sure that you went through this last year, but I always like to kind of start from the beginning. Comprehensive plans matter, one, because the state requires us to do it under the Growth Management Act. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly, is that they are important to all city functions. The land use of a city, of a jurisdiction, does drive so much of the city's functions. And this graphic here gives you, a little idea of how it's all interconnected. And while some might say land use isn't always the center cog, it definitely is one of the larger cogs of city functions, how the city's functions and the city programs and its functionality and how it serves its citizens. So it's important that we have a well-developed, coordinated intercoordinated by departments, as well as a reflective comprehensive plan of the community's visions and desires. Next slide. So under the idea that comprehensive plan is just good for a community, as I mentioned, it is a requirement of state law under the Growth Management Act that I'm sure you all are aware of. And this graphic just really speaks to, again, how the comprehensive plan, while its development and adoption is a moment in time, it again impacts so much of city functionality. And so I like this graphic because it shows that the input to a comprehensive plan is twofold. It is the state law and the requirements, but it's also a community vision. It is it needs to be integrated in with the state law, and there's definitely some things the state tells us that we have to do, but it can be very reflective and should be reflective of what a community wants. It's what it wants what its vision is for how land is to be developed. And we do know that as a city, we're obligated under the Growth Management Act to grow, that it is the place where growth does need to occur. That was determined by the state legislature back in 1990 when they passed the Growth Management Act. And, the premise of it is that to preventing sprawl and protecting rural lands, we're going to focus growth into urban areas where there's transportation and utilities available, as well as jobs and services and other opportunities. Now, a comprehensive plan can just be, when we think of the plan, we think of goals and policies, and that's certainly a big component of it and one that we spend a lot of time working on and talking about. But it's really a three-legged stool. The comprehensive plan is. The second leg is a land use map. The future land use map does establish what the zoning, what the land use designations are going to be for the city, that then gets translated into a zoning map. And that is important because that tells us where and what type of land use are going to occur. And then the third leg to the stool is a capital facility plan. And that, again, is not nearly as exciting as talking about goals and policies, but it is essential because this capital facility plan does outline and ensure that the city is prepared to provide the urban services that's necessary to support housing growth. And what's part of a capital facility plan is water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, parks and recreation, transportation, schools are a part of it, your fire, law enforcement. And so all of that will be dealt with, all of those will be dealt with as part of the comprehensive plan. And then moving on and how it gets implemented, we see it implemented now in the planning world. We mostly see it implemented through development regulations because that's our piece of the pie. But it also is implemented through the capital budget and the programs the city chooses. And so that final column there gives you a sense of like how a comprehensive plan does get implemented. Again, planning is going to be that center box where it's a zoning ordinance, critical area ordinance, development permits. When they come in, they get reviewed to the development standards, the development regulations that were created and born out of the policies and framework that was established by the comp plan. But again, our 20-year capital facility plan, that gets translated into a 6-year capital improvement plan that's through the budget process. And that is where your public works department, your city engineer, your public works director is going to take the guidance for what projects need to get, what capital investments are made in the city's infrastructure. And then the bottom piece is what kind of programs are there going to be, things that come out of the comprehensive plan that bubble up as important to the community that aren't a capital facility or are not a development regulation, but it's something that's important to the city to implement. And that could be anything from, what parks and recreation, affordable housing initiatives, interlocal agreements with local jurisdictions, our tribes. And so again, that part looks different, and we don't necessarily always think about that as when we talk about comprehensive planning, but it really does impact and touch all aspects of the city functions. So next slide, please. Thank you. And so this is the last introductory slide before we move into kind of what you all accomplished last year. To my understanding is this is just these three bodies are going to be part of the comprehensive plan update process that you already have been, and the city, and just walking from the bottom to the top, the professional planning staff, the city's hired professional administrators. They will administer the policies adopted in the comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission is the appointed policy advisors. You get you're the body, as you know, that rolls up your sleeves and does a lot of the hard work, understanding more of the deeper technical pieces of comprehensive planning, but also, the development regulations. I know that you've gone through last year a number of meetings where you were looking into the code and consider having public hearings and considering that. And you advise and make recommendations to the city council, who are the adopters of as the legislative body adopts policies as well as regulations. Next slide. So the next two slides is I'll just go over what the accomplishments that were made in 2024. So next slide, Ethan. So 2024 really was spent with a very robust public outreach and engagement program. And as I'm sure, as you know, a cornerstone, a foundational piece of comprehensive planning under the Growth Management Act is to have public participation. And you guys did that great last year. So there was a number of outreaches that was done by your main consultant on the comprehensive plan, which is SCJ Alliance. And they started off by interviewing a number of stakeholders in the community, as well as in Clallam County, in the city, Clallam County, and in the community. And then in June, as you know, you had a 3-day public studio, which you talked about vision and scenarios, and then transportation. They hosted an online survey, had a number of farmers markets presence, and a future land use alternative workshop at that Planning Commission hosted in September, a housing focus group as well in September the next day. And then Bill was with you on December to talk about the vision, updates to the comprehensive plan vision. Next slide. Now, while all of that was going on, there was some technical work that was being achieved behind the scenes. And the primary thing that got done last year, which is the first step, and it's a county role, is the county needed to adopt growth targets or growth allocations for all of its jurisdictions. So that would be, of course, the county, the 3 cities, some urban growth areas. And so the county, this is defined by the state law. So there's little steps on what they needed to follow, but there's a range of population that is provided to the counties, and this is to all counties that plan under the Growth Management Act by the Office of Financial Management. And then the county, through collaboration and communication with the cities, determines which one of there's 3, low, medium, and high is what they call it. And so the county chose the medium population range, and then those get translated into housing units. And that is a bit of a difference from past GMA planning, where we were talking about people, population growth. We're now, during this update, primarily talking about housing unit growth. That is coming from the state, and they do tell us that translation, and that it's basically a math formula that takes people with an average household size and gives us a housing unit count. So the very bottom of that graphic tells you what SQUIM's allocation is through that methodology set by Washington State Department of Commerce, actually. And so we need to be planning for this 2025 comprehensive plan update. We need to be planning for 1,850 new housing units in the city limits, and then 298 new housing units in the SQUIM urban growth area. Other technical work that was completed last year was a number of things, so I'll go through these at a high level. One of the first steps that Commerce asks all jurisdictions to do is complete what they call a gap analysis, and that certainly makes sense. That's a great way to start, because what we do is we use a checklist that's provided by the Washington State Department of Commerce that depicts all the requirements of Growth Management Act, highlights the new statutes that were enacted by the state legislature since our last comprehensive plan update, which was 2016. And there was a number, any of you who've been following along with all the state legislature changes, there's been a number since 2016. So that checklist is super important and a great way to highlight what gaps might be in the comprehensive plan that we need to make sure that we address in this update. SCJ completed that checklist for the city. And then in addition to that, the next piece that we do that works in tandem with the growth targets that we receive from the county is what's called sorry, I'm skipping ahead. So the land use scenarios and vision, that was, as you know, because you were definitely part of it, discussed in the June studio and the September land use workshop, and the vision that was discussed in your December meeting. And so if you think back at that graphic that I showed you, like that second one where you take GMA and community vision, like you did that community vision work. And that's really important because now this year we're going to mesh those two together. And so moving to the third point is the land capacity analysis. This is a very technical procedure that we go through. I won't totally bore you with the details on it. If anyone's interested, I'm happy to explain it to you. Hopefully next time I see you, I'll be in person. But it is a methodology that that we utilize, that SCJ did for the city. And it's a very distinct methodology where you take vacant and underutilized land and you run it through a methodology. And what that does is it calculates its available, how many units can that, say, 1 acre land carry. And that's very important because that is where the land use scenarios basically starts becoming real. Is like, okay, then where can the growth occur based on the available land? So then the other piece of it, since housing is such an important function and focus of the state legislature, a lot of their new bills that they enacted and a lot of the new work that cities have to do are centered around housing. And so a draft housing needs assessment, which is a new requirement under the Growth Management Act, for that is the foundation to the housing element that has been completed. It's been completed by a sub-consultant to SCJ called the Leland Consulting Group. We do have it and we are reviewing it. Staff is currently reviewing it. So myself and the DCD planners are reviewing it, and we'll be getting comments to the Leland Group very shortly. The Transportation Master Plan, which is not under the purview of DCD, but is under the city engineer. So we coordinate and work closely with the city engineer on this part. In fact, we provide growth targets. We provide the growth allocations to them and the land capacity analysis. And they use that information to do the demand model for transportation. So they have they've got quite a bit of work done in 2024 in preparation for this year. They have existing conditions completed and they have the traffic model completed and calibrated. Now, I can confess that I don't know what a traffic model calibration is. If there's any traffic engineers on Planning Commission, you probably can tell everybody, but I do know it's a big deal. And so the fact that they got that done says that we're in really good shape, because once we provide them the growth numbers, they will be able to start their work. And then similarly, there's utilities planning. So going to that capital facility element, the capital facility plan that I described at the beginning, we do need to incorporate the water system plan and the sewer system plan. We don't recreate it, but we definitely take information from those plans and incorporate them into the capital facility plan. And so that work, the water system plan is done. It's under review by Department of Ecology and Department of Health, and the sewer system plan is underway. I think it's still at the relatively beginning stages, but the city engineer let me know that they're working on it and they do plan to, have it done in time for the comprehensive plan. So all good news. So next slide. So what are we going to do in 2025? Well, we're going to bring it all together. And one of the things is we can take a sigh of relief because the state legislature did change the due date deadline to December 31st of this year. So I know that we have been working towards a June 30th deadline. It was there, of course, as you would imagine, people were feeling a little anxious about it because there is still quite a bit of work to do, but the December deadline is definitely a doable date. And what we'll be beginning to do is beginning to draft the comprehensive plan. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things here. While it is an update to the existing plan, my understanding is it's been the intentionality of it is not to. A lot of jurisdictions have been doing selective amendments to their comprehensive plan, not updating the entire thing. My understanding is SCJ's direction has been to update the entire plan. So we're not going to do what you commonly would see on a comprehensive plan update, which is an underline and strikeout format. But we will keep what's called a crosswalk, which is we will keep track of what policies get deleted, revised, or consolidated. Those are the three things that a policy will normally do. The chapters are going to be what's required by GMA, obviously, land use, transportation, the capital facilities plan, utilities, climate change and resiliency, which, as I'm sure you know, is a new requirement. And then the optional chapters are parks and recreation, economic development, conservation and sub-area plans. We will be doing a parks and recreation, economic development, and I believe we might be doing sub-area plan. I have to learn a little bit more about that, but I'm not totally sure. And then that would be on the downtown area. So if Bill or past conversations talked about downtown, that was what I was thinking. But again, I'll find out more information on sub-area plan. But I do know what we're going to be doing, which is the ones we have to do. So the specific new areas of focus, of course, are the housing options. And what, as I alluded to before, the state legislature was very interested in housing and did a number of bills. Not all of them apply to SQUIM, but a few of them do. And so in the comprehensive plan, what is required now that is new is in those housing unit allocations, so that 1850, we do have to define them by income band. And actually there it's already done. The definition by income band is already done. It's done by Commerce. And so we do know what how many that 1850 gets broken up by that income band. That work's already been done. And then we do need a climate resilient, like I said, the climate change and resiliency element again as required. So those are the two new focused areas. And then as if that wasn't enough, because it is, development regulations need to be updated with the comprehensive plan as well. Next slide. One moment. Yeah, thank you. So this is our high-level work plan for the year, broken up by quarters. And even though there's a few bullet points there, I'm sure you already know that there's a lot of work behind each of those things. And so, it was what could fit on the screen, but there's lots of subtasks to those, of course. So what's immediately in front of us right now is completing the housing needs assessment, determining what the growth scenario, what the city's growth scenario is, finalizing that, providing the growth distribution by zoning district and geographic area to transportation and utilities, so that those city consultants can do their demand modeling work and begin drafting the goals and policies. Quarter 2 is going to be continuing the transportation and utility planning work. We'll begin the draft chapters, meaning the narrative and the discussion that kind of embed where the goals and policies are embedded in. We'll do a community check-in, and hopefully we'll adopt the countywide hazard mitigation plan. And I put that in there because that's actually a really important piece of the climate change requirements, and Clallam County has taken the lead in that with coordination with the cities. It was a coordinated effort. It was a countywide one. So all the cities and the tribes participated in this, and they have it on their webpage. If you're curious, it's completed, and it will be, it's programmed to go to public hearing probably in March or April. So we do need to adopt that as part of our comp plan work. The quarter 3 will be SEPA considerations, determining whether or not an EIS is necessary, or if we do an addendum to the previous comprehensive plan's environmental impact statement. We'll release the draft comprehensive plan, and we'll begin the drafting of the development regulations. And quarter 4 will be the public hearing process. You'll have public hearings in front of you, the Planning Commission, and then you will make your your recommendations to it through the public review, workshop, and public hearing process. And then that gets forwarded to the city council for their public hearing process. And then GMA graciously gives an additional year to work on the critical area ordinance. And so I'm given the time frame that even though it feels like we have a year, it will go by fast with the amount of work. And so we will put the critical area ordinance on hold, focus on what work needs to get done this year, and then we'll update the critical area ordinance next year. Now, we do have SCJ on contract to help us with all of the comprehensive plan work. They can help us with, I believe, a portion of the development regulation work, and they are not on contract for the CAO. So that will be to be determined. Okay, next slide. And so that concludes my presentation. And I put this slide in here because I was hoping, and I think Christina and I both were hoping that we could take a few minutes. And these are a few prompts because I would really appreciate, and again, I apologize for not being in person, but I would really appreciate hearing what your experiences were in 2024. You were out in the community. You were engaged with the comprehensive plan, the Squimagine. You were engaged with the consultant. And I think it's a good moment while we get ready to embark on more technical work, but also taking of what we heard last year and making sure, developing it into a growth scenario that then gets forwarded through, like I said, the land use map and the goals and policies, especially in the land use chapter. And so there's a couple things that I would love to hear for you. I'll go over them and then we can stop sharing screen if that makes sense. But I'd like to hear what did you hear was important to the community? That, again, thinking back at that first graphic of community vision intersecting with Growth Management Act. What was important to the community and what is important to you as a planning commissioner? And then reading back on your Planning Commission meeting minutes, as well as the summaries provided by SCJ on the different engagement. What I saw bubble up was a couple of things. The need for a variety of housing types, more variety than what you currently have in the community. Concern and interest in active transportation, so ability to make sidewalk connections and bike lane connections, perhaps. Community identity, your character. How do you grow and still retain what's important to SQUIM and important to your identity? And job opportunities and kind of the work from home experience where people move to SQUIM because they are able to work from home. Balanced tourism. And then opportunities in the downtown for mixed use. So we don't have to cover all of those, but certainly would love to hear what thoughts and comments you have that you like to share with me as I work with Christina as your planning consultant. That also will be working with SCJ, your other planning consultant, on the comprehensive plan. So with that concludes my presentation, and look forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Carla. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
And we're looking forward to working with you as well. Do any of the commissioners have anything that they would like to input for Carla as far as what we heard from the community and what might help her in her endeavor? No? Okay. Okay, Larry?
Because the seat down here usually starts this conversation, right?
That's true.
Carla, thank you. That was a great presentation. And before we move on, I'd like to get a copy of that if I can, because I think it summed up everything nicely. Our consultants have done a really great job documenting, but I'll just kind of hit the high points of what I heard. We want a balanced community, meaning all ages. We've been senior centric. So we want a more vibrant community. I think what I also heard was we want to retain kind of a intimacy, a small town feel. And that goes to the transportation, the ability to walk and bicycle and all those things as well. I think those were some of the key things. Bringing more families here with children seemed to be important, and providing the job opportunities and housing for those younger people as well. And I think those are the key ones that stuck out to me, but I'll say the consultants had other things that were equally and as vitally important that I support.
Thank you. Eileen?
Thank you for the presentation, and I'm sure you'll enjoy working with us. A cast of characters for you coming up. There's some pretty big developments happening right now. And probably the thing that hit me the most from people, they were worried about water of all the development. And was there going to be enough? Are you going to make me, not have all the water I want? Water and traffic, is associated with the developments that are happening now. And as we develop, that's even more important. And then the rural aspect, people still wanted it. And it's all related to growth and development. They don't want it to change. They want to have enough water, and they want to have less traffic on the roads. So that's a challenge for all of us. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alex?
Sure. I agree with the previous two, and those were really good observations. Something I think that was new from the public comment input that I don't think we've digested or something. I think a lot of the public liked little clusters that would be higher density to the north of Washington, kind of spread out. But what I haven't figured out is where there's available land for that, and how that would work in practice. I think something for you to be aware of, as we saw, as the city has progressed and developed, it was sort of at random. So where we have a lot of seniors all around the schools, and it's too bad. We've got this situation where families, the open land for their development to provide for them at various densities, are going to be at a kind of beyond simple walking distance from the schools. A personal observation, I'm always interested in water as well, and particularly in possibly emergency circumstances of electrical outage, as can happen, because here we are at the very extreme of the power grid coming from the Bonneville Power Authority, and so being at the end of the line, we have roughly a reservoir of I think it's 3 million gallons. We use about a million gallons a day. And so we've got a 3-day reserve that can be gravity fed to the city under worst case scenario. And with the growth, whether it's 3% a year, whatever, over the next 20 years, I haven't yet seen any plan to increase that potable water reservoir. And so we'd be having ever less number of days to provide for people, even under a rationing situation or whatever it could be. I don't want to take these things for granted as we have such a vulnerable grid, and it only takes a solar flare or whatever to give us sort of a black swan sort of once in a lifetime situation. And I'd just like to see the city be prepared. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
One of the things I've heard quite a bit with these new developments coming in, people would like a little more choice in the density. They don't want to have high density everywhere because of the traffic in some of the smaller areas. They want a choice. And right now we don't have that. The comprehensive plan we have mandates, as does the zoning ordinance, that it's high density. And people have just they've said during these public meetings, why isn't there a choice? And I've been told that the developers have said they would like to be able to implement that, but they can't. So I think we need to look at that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Alex.
I'm thrilled to see the new state requirement of housing options by income band as required by state from my notes, because that's what from my 7 or 8 years here is where there hasn't been the economic incentive for developers to develop for lower income families, and because they haven't needed to, and they can make so much more with luxury development instead. And that's sort of the construction that's underway, say at Rolling Hills and other areas, with the exception being Habitats for Humanity's areas. So it'd be nice to see that we're not solely dependent on Habitat for Humanity or nonprofits, but if there's some other way to see affordable housing can come, whether we need to have create new institutions to provide that or partnerships or whatever. I think that's what the public really wants to see, because everyone's in desperate straits for housing now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, I think I'll just add, what I was hearing from the community is housing is a big priority. A lot of the community members want to see more housing for younger families, and also for professionals that come in, that work at, like the hospital, or, one of the bigger employers. Green space and open space was very important as well. And water. Everybody's really worried about water. And there was a fair amount about connectivity with being able to walk or ride your bike or ride a motorized scooter, or be able to have access to get from point A to point B. Anything else? Nope. Okay. One other thing that I would like to add is, I know that there's been a lot of work being done on, behind the scenes with the comprehensive plan. I feel like a little bit more communication with the commission would be good, even if it's just a touch, like, hey, here's the bullet points on what we've been working on. Because sometimes it would be a month or, 5 or 6 weeks, and, we wouldn't really have any kind of an update on, the work that's being done. And it doesn't have to be a formal presentation. It would just be nice to have some, a quick summary of where we're at, if that makes sense. Larry?
Yeah, if I could just follow up. So the number of housing units that we, the city, are responsible for was news to me.
Yeah.
And that would be invaluable as I'm out in the community to say, this is the load we have to carry.
Yeah.
And it's going to result in growth. Things are going to change. And how do we do it well? So I agree with you 100% that we need at least some kind of it doesn't have to be a presentation necessarily, but maybe even just like a fact sheet like that would be really cool for me.
Yeah, because that kind of knowing that we're looking at 1,850 houses in the city and then 298 in the urban growth area, that's going to help us make our decisions about, about density and zonings of what our recommendations would be. And, to be honest with you, actually having that number really, changed a little bit of the priority in my mind. Anyone else?
Oh, yes, from the January 7th meeting, a new thing that I think that came to all of our attention was the map of existing properties that are landlocked. So we may have less, when we look at the zoning map and we see the R4 through 8 or whatever, maybe a lot of that isn't developable, or there need to be a lot of new public roads put in to make it accessible. And so I guess the staff knows a lot more than we do, and what we have available in the UGA divided by how many new houses we have to provide for, how that math works out, or if we're in a, and I'd be really curious personally, how does a place that by the topography and everything, hills and harbor and all of this, like Gig Harbor, how do they meet these requirements for expansion when they don't have the physical ability to do it, or they're already built out?
Right.
I mean, I can answer that if you want, unless that was a rhetorical question.
Well, I'm sorry if I'm going in so
No.
many directions at the wrong time. It's my habit. I'm sorry.
I can just make that a quick answer in that it's going up. So everything along the I-5 corridor and Gig Harbor, Tacoma, all of it, the small and the big, they need to increase their building height. And so it's infill, it's redevelopment of existing land, meaning redeveloping, and it's going up to 5, 8 to 10 stories. And that's how it's being accommodated when you're already at cities that are at a built out or nearly built out situation. Yes.
Thank you. Larry, you had something else?
And just to pull back in some of the concerns of the community, we have to put in that number of homes. It is going to take water. It is going to increase, congestion, and we're doing our best to plan it all. I think even if the city itself had those talking points, because I remember the presentations on the John Wayne property and the resistance to it, that was 600 units. Well, the number's much bigger, folks, and here's what we're trying to do that we have to manage over this period of time. So it might help a lot of the discussions around for the
Keep in mind,
developers.
It's 2,000 over
45.
20 years.
Yeah. Mhm.
We're not talking about building tomorrow.
Right.
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 So there are going to be, people will get used to it gradually.
Excuse me, Commissioner. I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you please speak into your microphone so we can? Thank you.
It'll happen gradually over time, and
Yeah.
and 600 is a lot of homes for this community. So that's what, more than half of what the that's a pretty good stint of homes right there. So
Right.
even though they won't be occupied full time.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes, Alex.
I'm sorry. And of those 600 resort homes that have been put in the zoning for 10 or 15 or 20 years, or however long it's been, they don't, in my mind, they wouldn't fulfill the need for 2,000 homes for families and people to dwell in full time. As we realize, there'll be resort homes, occasional use, or become Airbnb homes, or who knows what, not part of the full-time community. So we have more to, I guess, to digest, even with that new development moving forward.
Keep in mind, Alex, even Airbnb homes, though, those homes were small homes. Some of those homes along Three Crabs, they're predominantly Airbnbs, but they used to be small cottage homes. So people are going to look at it and buy it up, and you build a stock if it's inexpensive and they can utilize it as a rental, as long as we don't have any regulations prohibiting it from being an Airbnb and taking it off a full-time residential area to be utilized that way. If market is higher for the property owner, it's going to go in that avenue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions or for the, I'm assuming that we're in the comprehensive plan catch up right now. The third item. Yes, Alex.
If Carla's still there, I don't know if she lost her internet link or time constraint.
There she is.
As we know, Sequim is famous for the irrigation festival, and so now so much of the irrigation districts supply the irrigation water formerly for the lifeblood of farming and dairies in the area. A lot of that is going to upscale homes, lawns, and there hasn't, to my mind, been a discussion of the use of irrigation water, and it gets really complicated with all the different stakeholders for water coming from the Dungeness. So, and we haven't yet seen any mandates for, what do they call it, for net zero landscaping and succulents and stones and all of that instead of lawns, and which would seem probably inevitable in the long run. And perhaps there's a chance to make some progress on that now.
Okay.
I haven't articulated that well, but I think the idea is on the top of a lot of people's mind when they see irrigation water going to purposes it wasn't originally intended for. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine, did you have something?
Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure that if the commission was not aware, the city produced a fact sheet, I don't know, probably 4-ish months ago on the status of our water supply. So if the commission is interested in that, I would encourage you to go to the city's fact sheet page and take a look at that. And, the city is in the process of working with ecology for the drilling of a new deep well out there by in our Dr. Standard Park area that goes down to the deepest aquifer. And so the reason why we're starting that now is because of the very long lead times that it takes to get through the permitting process with the Department of Ecology. We wanted to ensure that we were not in, quote, crisis mode, so to speak, before our water requirements came out for our comprehensive planning requirements, if that makes sense to the commission. So the city is aware of that. The Public Works Department is spearheading that effort. We have a water attorney consultant on us because while I'm familiar with water law, again, I don't want to profess to be an expert in a very niche area of law, but we've been working very closely with her in this as well. So the city is aware of it. We are working on it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any more questions for Carla? Yes, Dennis.
Hi, Carla. It just popped into my head, the 300 additional homes in the urban growth area is going to be under the jurisdiction of Clallam County. Will they have to meet the various income levels for that housing as well that Commerce is prescribing? And how will they attempt to do that?
Yeah. So it's a good question, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I did want to clarify that right now the requirement from Commerce is that we provide that we don't have barriers to the the units being the units that can serve households with that income level. And so I think Alex might have asked the question, how are we going to do that? And so I just wanted to clarify that what we do is we provide incentives and remove barriers in development regulations to ensure that the types of units that Commerce, the state is saying would likely be used by that income level would be provided. And that's the first step. I'm sure the legislature will add to that. So to your point, the units that are assigned in the UGA do have assigned income bands as well.
Okay,
I don't
thank
know
you.
if I'm sorry. It feels like my video might be glitching on you, and I apologize for that.
It's okay.
And the county has, I don't know if you've had a conversation with Clallam County staff yet, but do they have a strategy to meet that? Because their zoning, I don't think, is probably set up to accommodate densification.
No, I really appreciate that comment, and among all the notes I'm taking, I do think that that's something that we need to follow up with. I don't have at this point in time, I don't have a good understanding of what's allowed in the Sequim UGA by Clallam County. But your point is on point, that they're going to need to look at their development regulations and the types of units, just like we're going to have to ensure that we're not, again, twofold. It's two pieces. There's not barriers, and that there's densities or a variety of housing types that the state has identified that would be used by those different income bands. And so they're going to need to do the same work that we're going to do. But I appreciate the question, because it is the city's UGA, we have a vested interest in ensuring that we work closely with them, that they do their part of it as well.
Okay, thank you, Carla.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good. Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? No? How about from you, Carla? Do you have any questions that you have for the commission?
Well, I just want to thank you very much for tonight's conversation and your input. It's been very helpful for me. Again, as I started, I'm working on getting acquainted and familiar with the work that was done and the challenges and the work ahead. So thank you again, and I really look forward to working with you and as commissioners, as well as the community SQUIM, as we as my time with SQUIM this year and working on the comprehensive plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carla. We appreciate what you've done so far, and we look forward to working with you as well. Okay. Christine, do you have anything on that before we move on to the director's report?
No, I do not. Beyond conversation that you've had tonight, I was happy to hear the commission's response to the numbers, because as Carla noted in her presentation, the county passed that at the end of November. So this was relatively, at least for Carla and I, this was news to us as well. And so thinking about how that's going to look like going forward, with respect to Carla's comment about removing barriers and things like that, there are some things going back to the bans, right? The income bans. The state legislature has done some things already, such as removing public hearing requirements for certain types of units under income levels, some other things like that, that we may be looking at more closely in the future as well. So appreciate your feedback, and very much looking forward to working with this group.
Thank you. Do you have anything for the director's report?
I think we just had it.
Okay, great. Okay, how about good of the order? Does anybody have anything for good of the order? No, I do have one thing I wanted to bring up and encourage the commission to look at and provide input if they see fit there is a public comment session open right now about renaming the Squim Skateboard Park. And after a gentleman named Mark Simpson, who was part of the skateboard community. I worked with him at Costco. And yeah, you can provide public comment, I think, till the end of the month, but it's something to look at if you might be interested in providing comment. Either way, it's kind of a cool story. That's all I got. Anybody else? No? Okay, that brings us to adjournment. Do we have anybody that would like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, meeting is adjourned at 6:44 p.m. Thank you.